Okay, well, good afternoon. Welcome to the Potomac Division Virtual Clinic 41. It's hard to believe this is our 41st virtual clinic. We have with us today Kurt Thompson, uh, an MMR, former superintendent of the Chesapeake Division, helping us out, and we appreciate that. With Kurt, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Good afternoon, guys. Mainly because I can only see four people at a time in my view screen here. Um, so welcome, guys. Um, Clinic we're going to talk about is about the Motive Power Achievement Certificate. And as is the usual thing I teach or talk about whenever I talk about any of these certificates is they can be earned by most anybody with a little diligence and to not overthink it. So every clinic I give pretty much says, don't overthink this, just enjoy it. So, um, you know, question is, why would anyone want to pursue this certificate? Why would we build locomotives? Same reason we build anything else, structures or cars, they're part of the model railroad. And a lot of times from the articles that I've read and stuff, it's most often that the need for a particular locomotive for the modeler is um, the build. And need slash want are interchangeable as we are model railroaders, of course. So, of course, let's go to the requirements first, and let's talk about them, because if we don't talk about them, the rest of this will make no sense as to why I'm doing things. The AP certificate, it says you have to build 3 scale models of railroad motive power, one of which must meet the qualifications for scratch built. And motive power is defined as a locomotive or other self-propelled vehicle. The scratch built requirement has different meanings depending on what type of vehicle, what type of locomotive you're building. A steam locomotive to be scratch built has to have a scratch built frame, boiler, cab, tender frame and body, valve gears, or side rods. The rest of the motive power has to have a scratch built body, frame, cab, power truck side frames, pantograph or trolley pulls as necessary, as appropriate. The models must be capable of self-propulsion on the same gauge of track as the model. In other words, you can't build no scale model and tuck HO wheels under it and call it it might be a narrow gauge O scale, but there it is. And all 3 of the models must be super detailed. And again, there's now for the exceptions or the exemptions. Things that don't count for you, well, don't count against you if they are not scratch built. Motors, gears, drivers and wheels, not the side rods, but the drivers and wheels. Couplers, light bulbs, other electronics, the trucks, not the side frames, paint, decals, such things as bells, marker lights, and brake fittings. And of course, the ever popular, what we start with, the basic shapes of wood, plastic, or other metal or other things. Hell else, that's about the fabrication. And each of them must earn a merit award, 87.5 out of 125. And that's through NMRA sponsored contest or merit award evaluation. And then you do the paperwork. And then you submit it. And then the paperwork comes to your division AP guy, who in Potomac is Martin. In Chesapeake, it's me. Off the top of my head, so I've got the list somewhere, but I can't run the table on the other divisions. Although hopefully you individually know who your AP guy is in your division. For me, I'm pursuing this by building two switchers and a box cab. Um, I took steam engines right off the table because one, I'm not going to I was in no way do I have a machine shop in my basement. I'm a model railroader, not a model machinist. And the other thing too is I'm a diesel era modeler. Granted, the diesels I'm looking at are 1930s, when they were introduced. So um, when I first thought about this, when I thought this would be one of the 7 certificates I'd get to become a master model railroader, I was looking at doing trolleys. But then again, I didn't want to. I had started looking at how pantographs are built, and I'm like, again, seeing more effort than it was worth. And the undertitle of this says, "Don't overthink this." Well, I overthought it enough that it kept me from pursuing the certificate until about 3 years ago when I suddenly quit overthinking it and just read the instructions. Also, it was after I got my MMR, so okay, now I can breathe. I don't have to hold my breath on this one. Moving to O scale has kind of changed my thoughts on what I was going to do. I like switching. As it says, I'm unapologetic. If it comes to operation, I want to either be on a local freight doing switching or in a yard. Um, as some have seen, I do have an O scale layout. I'm in the middle of a reconstruction of it now in a room that most would consider too small for HO, but it was a switching layout. And again, like many, I have a growing fascination with car float operations. Um, at one point, I was considering doing Erie's 28th Street Yard in Brooklyn, New York, and that really would have fit my almost in scale my space in O scale if I had pursued it. But the Cincinnati and Lake Erie being in Ohio and the Miami River and the Ohio River were not large car float operation opportunities. So that's kind of where it went for a while. The first thing I liked was the box cab. And, it says that you've got to do the frame. So the first thing I did was Atlas came out with in the 70s, or actually Roco from Australia or Austria, gave Atlas a whole bunch of O scale cheap things, and you can still find them on eBay. An F9, wide vision cabooses, box cars, gondola. So the picture on the left shows the dissection of an Atlas frame. And so we all know an F9 is longer than an Alco box cab. And for me, it ended up the distance requirement was exactly the length of the motor. So I hacked the frame just outside of the motor and threw away the fuel tank. And then I got out my magnetic assembly tray and pushed everything together, lined it all up, and then reinforced the two halves, the now two halves, what used to be 2/3, into a frame. And that's, of course, square styrene. I think it's 1/8 inch square styrene, splicing the plate. The picture on the left is the completed frame with the trucks reinstalled. And yeah, that's a load of BBs or lead shot actually filled in the cavity, and more than probably 2 ounces of Elmer's glue, because the motor in those Roco F9s is not a can motor, but it's about this big, and it's all the weight you need in that locomotive. It's centered in the motor. So these things, the modified frame, I had to find ways to put weight in it. The other part of that is the wheelbase on the trucks. If you look at the right-hand picture, those are standard EMD Blomberg trucks with a 9-foot wheelbase. The Alco side frames, wheel sets have a 7-foot wheelbase. That comes into play in a minute. For those of you who were at Altoona, saw the Tinkercad clinic I gave before. Some of the other things I did is I took the blueprints that were in Model Railroaders Locomotive Cyclopedia, the big red flat book, and they have O-scale plans for the box cab. Because of the not being able to shorten the frame because of the wheels, I ended up having to redraw the box cab side panels, because as I told you, there was an extra 2 feet of truck space under length. So I had to stretch the box cab side frame, not side frame, the box cab sides 4 feet. So I kind of had to slip a little room in, and where that extra room comes in is the panels here and here and here are actually where the 4 feet are hidden. If you laid the plans in mine side by side, you could see where they fall out. This is, of course, one of the end panels. And then I made 2 shortened versions to fit inside so that I can have that. The roof is going to be 10,000 styrene, of course, laid across the top. So I needed some internal bracing for that roof as well. So when I get these printed, probably from Shapeways, it'll be 2 of everything in the picture. So, and if you remember, I said that I had to stretch the truck. The side frame has to be stretched. So after the nice thing about O-scale is if the print's the right thing, I can just copy it and then use my digital calipers and measure it and then go right into Tinkercad and make it. And the sketch for this, that's going to be the side frame. And just like building it in styrene, build from the bottom layer out. So these parts it's all in Tinkercad, all the various pieces have been joined into one piece. But there were, trying to think, probably I had to design, I think this probably had the order of 60 individual pieces, squares and stuff. Tinkercad's very nice. In it, it does have rivets or little hexagons that you can use for rivet heads. And so that's where that comes from. Now, the side frame being, because I drew it in Tinkercad and will print it, that will count for being scratch built. I don't have to, I thought about building it in styrene and then casting a master, which would also count for scratch built. If somebody else does this and borrows my thing, they won't get credit for scratch building the side frame because they didn't draw it. But if you've been through the Tinkercad clinic, it's just trial and error and learning a new skill. The other 2 locomotives that I'm going to do are the Bush Terminal Ingersoll Rand 300 horsepower switchers. And for these, I've gone completely from not even, taking something pre-existing and tearing it apart like I did with the Atlas F unit. This frame is going to be built from styrene, or is built actually. Um, the top, what the bottom sheet is 60,000 styrene, and then the braces are, um, you know, single beams on their side. Actually, they're I-beams. And these are positioned according to a diagram that I got from uh, Railway Age Gazette, which is available online. If you type it in, it's all in open free domain. And there's an article from December 7th, 1931. It was, if you ever read the Gazette, the Railway Age Gazette, it's basically part information and part commercial. And it's almost whoever built something, if you want to sell it more, you write up an article and say, I sold it to so and so, and now you can use it. Um, but in that article, they had the underframe of the locomotive flip. They had a picture of it inverted, and so it gave a very good detail of what these beams looked like and where they were spaced. Um, you see in the top half of that, those trucks are actually part of the motor. Each axle has its own motor. So these truly are traction motors and tractions and in the truck. And they will be wired in series, all four, because the DC, the motors that the lowest geared locomotive, lowest wound motors that I could get that would fit inside the O-scale trucks still are high speed, as into at 12 volts, they're going to run about between 8 and 12,000 RPMs. So wiring them in series, I'm trying to cut that down by a fourth and even more. And since this will have DCC, I will crush the speed table in DCC with them as well, so that I get switcher speed, not RDC, rubber band power speed, out of them. Now the motor, as I said, the motors are traction motors fit into the drawing. And this is actually the first thing I did in Tinkercad, was to build two of these. This is the top portion of the motor mount. And these side panels are where the side trucks will mount, along with the wipers, the brass wipers for the motors, for the pickups. And this is the centering hole for mounting it through the frame. And its mate is similar. It has a hole too, so that I can reach a screwdriver through it to mount the truck, because the two shells halves come together and are screwed together with 0040 screws, very small. Likewise, here is the completed side frame for the Ingersoll Rand switcher. Again, this is, if you were in the clinic, I'll go through, the Tinkercad clinic uses this side frame as the walkthrough piece. I've since gone back through and have updated the pictures, because when I first did it, these springs were this tile, which is incorrect. Of course, they should be helical coil springs. And somebody in the Tinkercad community said, hey, I need springs. And since it's open source, they provided new and better springs. So the latest version of this actually has helical coil springs here. The reason I chose to do the Ingersoll Rand ones is mainly because of this side frame. And the article in Railway Age Gazette explains what it is. The side frame is built out of a 26-inch tall I-beam. And what they did is they cut the openings for the journals, the spring plates for the equalization, and that's how they did it. It literally is the most simplistic side frame a diesel could ever have. And it doesn't have to have a lot of equalization or anything because these things delivered had a top speed of 25 miles an hour. So, again, if you want to build one of the self-steering EMD, HTC side frames that go under an SD 90 Mac, now they've been discontinued, have at it. That's far too detailed for me. Choose your targets carefully, gentlemen. That's all I'll say about that. And here you can see these are the 3D printed versions. The bottom frame with the large hole for the screwdriver to go through, the top plate, and these two fit into each other and lock in. And then two of the side frames, which would be attached to a spacer along with the wipers on these side panels, the drop panels. So in for a penny, in for a pound. I'm going to be having the long hood. This is the end of the Ingersoll Rand long hood for the locomotive, again, done in Tinkercad. So this will get printed. Here's the cab unit. And this is not a true center cab. It is a centered cab, but it has a longer hood and a shorter hood. And the long hood was only a little bit more difficult than the short hood to do. But so with all things those being scratch built, I mean, being 3D printed and drawn in Tinkercad by me, are, meets the requirements. Now, when you do read the instructions, if anything that is exempt from scratch building, if you don't want to scratch build it, don't. But if you do anything from the scratch building list, the exemption list, you gain points in the evaluation. So when I get the Bush terminal engines done, because I've made the motor mounts and designed and got traction motor sets and had the wheels drilled out and I mounted them on axles, all of those things will gain me extra points towards scratch building. Honesty being the policy here. I am in the process of these. These projects are running concurrently with about 9 other things I'm doing. So I had hoped to get them done so that I could have got them judged at Altoona, but that didn't happen. So maybe when we get to Durham, I will have them done. If not, I'll get them done at New Jersey the year after that. So, but if you look at the requirements and you look what I'm going to be doing, hopefully you see it's not arduous and it isn't difficult to match the scratch building requirements and to meet them. So that's pretty much all I've got. I've walking through this with you and show you my thinking and where I'm at. The frames and the truck assemblies are all done. The side frames for the Ingersoll Rands have been printed. They're finished. The ones for the Alco box cab haven't been printed yet. I had hoped to get copies of the box cab components printed, but a friend of mine who was using his The 3D printer at his work in their makerspace ran into printer problems, so I wasn't able to show you those outside of the site vaporware of Tinkercad. As always, guys, I'm also the AP region guy. I'm here to help you and your AP division guy for you to reach your goals. If getting the AP motive power one is one of your goals, we have a lot of modelers, MMRs who've received theirs already. So there's a lot of resources out there in person, and I stand ready to be one of those. So at this point, Ernie, I'm done running my mouth. If anyone's got questions or comments, we can go for a little Q&A or discussion time. Thanks for letting me present this.
Hey, Kurt, this is Jack.
Yes, Jack.
Aside from the obvious one scratch-built locomotive, what's the challenge? Or I'm thinking about kits, locomotive kits.
Super detailing.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, putting a modern Atlas Jeep 9 in with all the attached stuff that they give you really probably won't get you to the 87 and a half. So it means the super detailing for something bought, an old Atlas or, I mean, if you take an Atlas blue box locomotive and super detail it, I've seen people earn merit awards with those.
Yeah. Well, I can see where if you painted one, you could get points there.
Right.
And it's probably easier to super detail a steam kit than a diesel kit.
Probably.
Because I mean, a lot of these steam locos that I've seen from guys, they're adding ropes and chains and tools and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. And reworking the pipes, for the various appliances and stuff, because it may not match the prototype that they want. And Alan Mendy comes to mind. I know Alan's he's taken stock Bachmann 460 and reworked it for a Central New Jersey prototype, and he took it down to a bare boiler almost.
Well, I don't know of anybody who's at Alan's level. I went to his clinic.
I'm only offering him as the example of reworking the pipes and the appliances.
Yeah.
But yeah, now
adding a Dakota, would that give you a few details?
a decoder doesn't. I mean, it won't give you details unless you're using it to control the lights in a more prototypical fashion.
Okay. Right.
If you're going to go to the Einstein route and scratch build your own or make your own lights, then yeah, by all means. But that's a bit much for the return on
just adding
on
the
getting
Dakota is not going to do much. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, scratch building your own headlight is, the light element itself isn't going to gain me 2 points. It's going to be not worth my time and effort.
On the Ingersoll Rand that you illustrated, you cut up the frame.
No, that was for the Alco
The box cab.
Yeah.
Okay, the box cab. So does that then turn what might have been a scratch build into a kit bash?
It does. I'm going to submit the 2 Ingersoll Rands as scratch built.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't want, the reason is I was reusing, I'll answer the logic behind why I did it that way. The trucks, I didn't want to fabricate another entire set of trucks and mountings like I did for the Ingersoll Rand.
Right.
Now I could. I've done it. I've done all the preliminary work in Tinkercad. I could do it. but the Atlas trucks were properly geared already, and didn't want to reinvent, literally did not want to reinvent the wheel, the truck, the mounting for all those. So instead of making 7'6" long wheelbase trucks and scratch building, new motor mounts and, side frames, I did kind of kit bash that. But, if one of the two Ingersoll Rands passes as a scratch built and they both would be identical, then the Alco box cab would be kit built and would still qualify with all the detail.
Hey,
So-
Greg Cassidy, I was wondering the same
Yeah,
thing
Greg.
Jack brought up. Is there any kind of point where there's a crossover between kit bash and scratch build? If you took part of something that's railroad related and took it apart and reused it in a totally different area, would it be considered scratch build?
Can you flesh out your example,
Yes,
Greg, so I can follow it?
Yeah, I just built a little scratch built structure, and for the flashing where the stovepipe came out, I took a wheel off of a wheel set, the plastic wheel, shaved it down and used it because it was already round. So
I would say that I don't see that as, when you look at kit built versus scratch built, you have to look at the overall function, the overall quality of the thing. There's a 90% rule.
right.
So and you repurposed the wheel and you modified the wheel. You
Yes.
didn't just, and I'm sorry, there's not a lot of buildings I know that have wheels. They're called, they are, but they're called trailers.
No, it's just it's a round piece of flashing that the stovepipe comes out. So I figured,
Greg, I would still, I don't think you violated your qualification of scratch built on that building. Jack, do you think?
Yeah, I'm listening to Greg. I'm saying, why don't you just cut a circle in styrene?
because I can never cut a circle round. And this thing
Thank
was
you.
already round. I just had to shave it down a little bit and it was right there.
Greg is my hero because he's admitted that he can't cut a circle.
Now,
I'm in that boat.
but you
I
could
agree with
probably
Greg, you can't cut a
3D
circle.
design one.
Hmm.
And that was my second question. I thought that to be scratch built with 3D, you had to either do the printing or someone else couldn't intervene.
No, the rules on
Okay.
3D, the rules on 3D printing are you have to, just like if you make the master
Mhm.
and you cast it or have someone else cast it for you, you make the master, that piece is scratch built. You do it in Tinkercad or Fusion 360 or whatever CAD drawing you want. You do it, you can send it to Shipways and they will print it.
Uh-huh.
They're not going to worry about it. They're not, Now, the thing is, ultimately, after I've done doing the Tinkercad or after the Ingersoll Rands are built, I can put those three, the short cab, the long cab, and the hood, or the two long and short hoods in the cab, up on Shapeways site
You have to
And-
be sold.
to be used,
Yeah.
$5 a piece or whatever. I don't even know what people are getting for it. But anybody who uses them cannot earn scratch build points for them but they can still do kit building and super detail work
Mhm.
and make them qualify for the 87.5.
I guess I was under the interpretation if somebody else intervened in the process.
No,
Okay, great.
that
It's good to hear.
well, kind of the whole thing again is okay. How is Shapeways different than using and comparing apples and oranges? We're talking locomotives and track work here. A fast tracks jig.
Mhm.
Well, they call a fast track jig a tool. So you're calling Shapeways a tool?
Yes, a 3D printer is a tool.
But
So
it's no, but as Greg is, I think
There's no brains in a 3D printer. There is brains in trying to put a CAD drawing together.
Yeah, I
Trust
think
me.
where I had heard it utilized was
Yeah.
if you sent your design to Shapeways or a friend of yours who has a 3D printer or something, when they put it in their slicer, if they have to manipulate it to print, then
no,
they've touched it, so it's not scratch
No.
building or something. Okay.
the ruling from on high, basically from Frank Cook and the others on the National Achievement Program have studied this and have come. The answer is your 3D diagram goes and is printed and is not. Now, if they have to, and this is where Shapeways is good. If Shapeway has an issue with it, they'll send you a note back going, we can't do this as it's drawn. You need to correct something.
Uh-huh.
That's not intervention because they didn't correct the drawing, the error.
Oh, I see. So if it gets manipulated to print.
They'll advise you that you need to
Okay.
do the manipulation.
Right.
So
And
it's
they
still
won't do
your
it.
design.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So yeah, because the motor trucks, the two clamshells, the top and bottom,
Mhm.
were printed by a friend of mine. Another friend printed the side frames, but they did nothing to my prints.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, they sent me, and I learned that it is a reiterative process, especially with the top and bottom motor mounts. They went through 5 iterations from my initial, hey, Jeff, print these for me. And I get it back and they're like, they don't work. Hey, Jeff, print this one for me. Yeah. And me and my model railroading ego thought, hey, I got these right the first time. This is a one and done. Now they were 1 and 5 done. Not 1 and done, 5 done.
gents, my dog is barking. So thank you, Kirk. I have to scoot.
All right, Jack.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good
Kurt,
seeing you.
before I let you go, could you just do a brief recap? 3 pieces of motive power for the AP. 1 scratch build, 1 87.5, and 1 along for the ride. Yeah, and maybe I'm
No.
oversimplifying. Go through the requirements again for AP motive power.
Actually, I'm gonna turn. Alex is over here waiting patiently, but I'll let Alex do it because he's got his AP motive power.
Oh, all right.
I'll let him reconfirm, but I'm going to double check.
Yeah, all 3 of them have to be merit awards.
Award winners.
3 merit awards.
1 scratch built.
1 scratch built. The other 2.
All super detailed.
Yeah.
Super detailed, enough to get 87.5.
Correct.
And then 1 87.5 scratch built. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
C grade
87.5, let's take a steam locomotive example, where you're going to, beyond my limits, although I do have a lathe, I do have a milling machine, but I ain't that good. But I can do some CAD. Can I reuse a frame, motor mount, and let's just say running gear from a steam locomotive, detail the heck out of it, make it resemble my prototype right down to the rivets? Is that 87.5 possible if I reuse a frame and running gear?
It is, but I don't think you're going to meet this. You won't meet the scratch built requirement because you're not scratch building. Okay, and that's fine, Jim.
I'm just looking for the 87.5 because
I would bet you could. The magic number is 88, right?
Okay,
number of keys on a piano. That's all we're counting.
Sure. Yeah.
And
this particular locomotive happens to be my all-time favorite, and but the frame and running gear is just over the edge for me. But I think I can put enough detail and enough rivets to get 87.5 off it.
I bet you could. I don't see that a lot of people do it that way.
Now, scratch built, I'm going to take a different approach, and I'm basically trying to muddle my way through AutoCAD 360. I'm giving up on that rapidly, and I'm going to go with Onshape, and I'm going to build a gas electric from completely from scratch, and that'll be all my own CAD work once I get the CAD work. Because I have the advantage of actually having the prototype within about 30 miles of me, and I have some original drawings, et cetera, et cetera. So that gas electric is going to be my pride and joy, always wanted to build, and that will be scratch built. And I've already got a start from a previous convention on a super detailed diesel that I should be able to up the level on, and maybe I think I got maybe 70 points on it the last time. Maybe I can tweak enough to get it up to 88 magic number.
And
that sounds like a plan for me for AP.
And Jim, you touched on something that is important. If you get something evaluated and it does not meet the merit award level, if your judges, if the evaluators, I have to look. I've been told by Gordy, our president, it's like I've got to lose the word judges. If the evaluators, did not give, there's a whole thing now. These are not judged unless it's a contest. Contests are judged because you rank first, second, third. But models themselves are evaluated.
I'll have to tell that to Jack. Sorry, he left already, but he has evaluated a number of my models for me. So
well, but the point you bring up is if your evaluators did not give you feedback about how you could improve the model.
They did. They did. They were very, very detailed. And it's like, okay, that's the KITA. And yes, if I were to follow my evaluator's advice and get off my buttocks, I could probably get up to 88.
Okay. But the point being is if you get something evaluated once and it does not meet the merit award level, you can rework it and resubmit it to be evaluated again. They talk about this is the achievement program is the world of do-over.
Absolutely.
Take a mulligan, take the mulligan.
Just move on.
And pick it up, play it where it lies and move on,
On to the next one. Anyway, that's good advice.
When I will admit, when I did my structures, I got fed up and I some that were not going to ever make. It didn't matter how much benefit I was given and how much the evaluators gave me. Well, you could do this and make it better. There were some that I just dropped the bomb on. I literally.
Yeah, they were right now. Those are the ones on the back of the layout.
No, this ended up being a pile of unusable strip wood when I got done with it.
Oh well.
Godzilla and the Tokyo wooden homes. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Yeah, Kurtzilla. I destroyed a few Kurtzilla.
I'm just trying to crank up 3 skills that are lacking. One is resistant soldering, which usually involves in a lot of other parts falling off. But I can improve the brass loco with that, rework the boiler cab, tender, et cetera, all the good things that need to get it up to 88. The 3D CAD, I've got to march on. I have made some parts. Nothing as ambitious as this gas electric, but that's on the learning curve. You don't learn 3D CAD in a day, a year.
With Tinkercad, Jim, I started probably 4 years ago.
So you're making rapid progress like I am.
Oh, no. The story is sillier than that. And I went through and did all their tutorials, couldn't figure out what I was doing. It went on the back burner for 2 years. I went to log back in and I was surprised I still had an active login to Tinkercad because it's a web-based thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And, and subsequently, I've written a 3-part article for O-Scale Trains magazine about using Tinkercad. I've now done the clinic a couple, I've
Yeah, I read that article. Good.
yeah. So
Inspirational.
it wasn't, hey, I believe in the old Geico commercial, it's so easy, even a Neanderthal can do it. Well,
Pretty much. Yep. So you put
I
down your stone club and picked up a stylus. Okay.
yes, pretty much.
Uh,
I probably wouldn't even have been a good stonemason because I can't see what's hidden inside the piece of wood.
That's right. You take away everything that isn't the Mona Lisa. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, everything that isn't the statue of man. No, I can't see how the statue of man fits in that the 1x4x9 monolith.
Oh, I
So,
sympathize. Okay. But anyway, that's it. Okay, that's what I want to ask. And all I can say is I'm gonna, pick up my mouse or pick up my soldering iron and or pick up some of the debris off the floor because I can still find that locomotive in the back stall of my roundhouse. That's how much it's seen, but I can upgrade that too. So, okay. Thanks very much. This seminar has been quite helpful. And like I say, every once in a while, we need a little prodding to, get off our doofus and get back at it.
well, if you have a lathe or something, Jim, I may be sending you something in the next year to drill out some because I'm going to need to change these. The Ingersoll Rand are being built to the 5-foot gauge O scale. I've now gone to
Okay.
P4. I've now gone to P48, so I need to redo the motors.
Well, you see, you're inspirational because I actually worked for Ingersoll Rand for 18 years, different
Oh,
division, but
yeah.
it was, I actually was able to go back to headquarters one visit and I got some plans and, so I got inspired to, once in a while, I'm going to take my old model die casting and then turn those into real Ingersoll Rands. But, one of those back burner projects. Let's say.
I'm going to say if you happen to stumble on the Bush Terminal 300 plans, let me know.
Keep my eyes open there. Fortunately, I've since retired, so some of my contacts have gone by the way. But it's the
Yeah.
thought that counts. Keep my eyes open.
Well, John Techmuller had somebody in the Rail Marine Special Interest Group did a side elevation, and that's what I drew all the Tinkercad stuff from.
Good.
And they happened to be in O scale. When they came over, I measured them. They were not quite in O scale. I had to inflate them about 13%. They were under, but once I got them on O scale, then I took my digital calipers and measured off and
awesome.
Went to town.
Yeah. So most of the lathe work, oddly enough, that I've done has been for other guys in CPD 13. It seems the word once you got something that works, the word gets out. Hey Murph, can you do this? I'll fill in the blank. That's
Well,
fun.
mine will be simple, Jim. Well, I'll send you the motors and the wheels and ask you to take the Northwest Shortline wheels, put the axles
I
in them.
also noticed that I think Rob Russo is in the background. I'm smiling, laughing, funny faces. I also do old-fashioned resin castings, and Rob is smiling in the back. Oh, wait a minute, he's gone beyond. Look at Rob's there.
There they are.
I was going to say, Rob's got a bag in his hand.
He's got a bag of castings that are made from a model fuel tank. The old I forget which it was. He used to jettison fuel tanks.
Yeah.
So we have turned those into fuel tanks that will be going on his flat car load when he gets off his buttocks and starts building the flat car and the frame to install all those. He's turning. He's going back to the bench. And
yeah. So here's two.
look at those, will you?
Mhm.
gotta glue them together and assemble them into the load.
There you go. So, well, that's what CPD did. We don't get much work done on our own, but we're able to do quite a bit of work for other guys in the division. We keep them moving along.
Yeah. Well, I'll be happy to see you all live again in person in 9 months.
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't, what do we have, Rob? What, 19, 29 months till the convention? Oh, yeah, we'll be ready.
It's shorter than that.
I was
That's what I'm afraid of. And
I
you
was
wonder
gonna
why
say,
nothing's getting done now,
Eight.
because we're all trying to get ready for the convention. Oh,
being the antagonistic realist a little bit, 9 months, 7 days.
Yeah, that's it.
oh.
Yeah.
I was always suspicious of you, man. What am I going to do with you, Kurt?